My name is Monica Wilkinson Kelly. I'm the archivist at the Edith B. Ford Memorial Library in Ovid, New York. This interview is being conducted as part of the Cayuga and Seneca Lakes Agriculture and Craft Beverage Memory Project. Today is May 13, 2021, and I am interviewing Brendan Zugibe of Zugibe Vineyards in Geneva, New York.
I'm Brendan Zugibe. My family started this back in 2005. Me along with my two brothers and my father. And we're located outside of Geneva, New York on East Lake Road. Pretty much I describe it as the northeast corner of Seneca Lake.
All right, so you're on the east side of Seneca Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So can you tell me how your vineyard was established? Who started it?
Yeah, so both of my brothers were getting into grape growing and winemaking. I have an older brother named Fred, who is our winemaker, and his background was chemistry, psychology, chemistry, and he was looking to follow in the footsteps of our father to go into medicine, and he was taking a lot of pre-med courses, so a lot of chemistry, a lot of organic chemistry, and he had taken a job working for Swedish Hill Vineyards and really liked it a lot. And so even after working there and pushing on with his pre-med studies, he kind of backed out a little bit and decided that what his passion really was, you know, back with what he was learning with winemaking. And at the same time, he convinced our younger brother, Sean, that, you know, Sean had kind of shown early beginnings as a botanist, sort of, to get into the same sort of thing. And so both of them started pursuing that on an educational level, with my older brother going up to Brock University in Ontario, Canada to study enology, and our younger brother Sean going out to Santa Rosa, California to study viticulture. So both of those guys were getting into it, and I was finishing a business degree in North Carolina, and a lot of things just kind of made sense, and a lot of things clicked, and timing wise, you know, we were all finishing our programs around the same time. And so, you know, our father, who, you know, has always wanted us to do something together, really had the vision to kind of tie it all together.
So there was no family history in agriculture or farming. Where did you grow up?
We grew up about a half hour away from here in Newark, New York, which is in Wayne County, like big, you know, farm kind of town. Our parents would visit wineries, and they would bring us with them, and you know, in the 80s even, and you know, we would get our free little cup of grape juice, and you know, we remember those things, and it was always just kind of on the fringe of, you know, growing up. You know, my folks would always, you know, even when we're in high school, you know, stopping at vineyards and, you know, buying the different wines and elevating their palates from, you know, sweeter to drier. And so no, we had no farming background whatsoever. Our first gig here on the property was, you know, picking up rocks that were going to be in the spot of where, you know, we were planting vineyards, and learning how to drive tractors, which, you know, is a little bit different than driving cars, but way more fun. And, you know, we just kind of were sponges and learned it as we went.
And so your dad was a physician, you had mentioned?
Mm-hmm. Yep, he was a cardiologist that practiced locally. He came from downstate New York, outside of New York City in Rockland County, and he took his residency in Rochester and started his practice in Newark.
And so when did your dad purchase the property, or all of you collectively?
Yeah, he like remortgaged some of his properties that he had to purchase ultimately the property that we have now, and did extensive research looking at different suitable properties around, having Cornell do some soil analysis of, vineyard sites, and he was able to find this property that we have here. Had to outbid, other actually Mennonite families that were, really interested in the property, and he was able to purchase it in 2005, early in the year, and we were able to start planting vineyards that same year.
And how many acres did he purchase? Have you added since the initial?
We haven't added. It's a little over 220 acres total. There's some wooded land, a little bit of unplantable land, but probably over 100 acres that we can still plant on. And our first vineyard that we planted was down this way, and we planted 23 acres in one shot our first year. And 2 years later, we planted another 17 acres to bring it to 40 acres.
Wow. And what was here before? Was it a farm before growing other crops?
That was one of the cool things about the property. Was one of the more prominent grape researchers for Cornell owned the property, Professor Kimball, and he had a home right here, like where this property is, and just behind me he had a whole test planting of like vines that he was growing, and things that maybe were like brand new to the world that nobody even knew about. But his background was in field grafting grapevines, which would mean a grapevine grows out of the ground, and he would lop the vine off like pretty much at the base and put a different variety on top of that, and nurse that until it grew into its own vine. So utilizing the root system that it had, but changing what it's actually putting out. Okay. So definitely had some history right here in the property, and he was a big advocate of the properties that were around this area.
And what kind of grapes, did you grow or did you plant initially, or what do you have primarily today? A variety of hybrids or varietals? So
my dad was more adamant that we concentrate on vinifera varieties. And so everything that we planted, everything that we grow is all European vinifera varieties. So, all the heavy hitters for the region, Riesling, Cab Franc, Gewürztraminer, but we grow some things that are not super typical. We grow Sauvignon Blanc. That's not necessarily, a very popular variety to grow around here. We were the first in New York State to plant Gruner Veltliner, which is an Austrian variety, which is super, what's the word I'm looking for? Suitable for the growing cold conditions hardy that we have here. Yeah, definitely cold hardy. Shows a lot of the same characteristics as like a Riesling does. So that one definitely has found a good home here. But we grow Pinot Noir. Like a lot of growers are, iffy about planting Pinot Noir because of our humidity, and Pinot Noir tends to be a very tight clustered variety. So not always easy to farm it. But we have 11 different varieties of all vinifera grapes now.
Okay. And so, I'm sorry, when did you plant the first vine?
In 2005, we planted our first vineyards.
And it takes 3 years plus to produce fruit.
Mm-hmm.
And then unfortunately, your dad passed away.
He did. Yep. He had a lot of foresight in how we were doing things. So in fact, like, we planted in 2005, but he found a vineyard in Interlaken that was looking to sell their property, and they were growing all red varieties. And he made an arrangement with him that will go through and train their vines and maintain their vineyards and be able to harvest their crop with the 2006 vintage, regardless of who purchased the property and things. We bought a bunch of little winemaking equipment and stuff. Some of it we still use today, just to kind of get ourselves started. So we did have a vintage in 2006, and by 2007 since we had such an extensive planting, we did have a small harvest of things like Riesling and Pinot Gris and Chardonnay. So he gave us sort of a year of red grapes prior to anything that we harvested off our own property.
And can you tell me about the significance of the phoenix?
The phoenix. So our name Zugibe is a Lebanese name, and the Lebanese, where Lebanon sits today, is like the main sort of stronghold of the Phoenician culture. And the Phoenicians spread a lot of knowledge of winemaking around the Mediterranean. They introduced grape cultivars to Spain and Portugal and Italy and Greece, and showed them what varieties would be the best suitable varieties to grow at different places, showed them how to make wines. And so they were like really instrumental in pushing wine knowledge in the Mediterranean region. And so the Phoenicians were sort of a peaceful civilization, were attacked all the time from all sides, weren't looking to battle with people and weren't looking to war with people. And so they would be destroyed, and they would run into the hills, and they would come back each time. And so the whole idea of the phoenix was because they always came back. They always rose from those ashes and came back. And so for us, especially after losing my dad, it was the same sort of thing. It was, we lost this huge force, and we rose from the ashes from that loss.
Wow. Can you talk a little about what makes the soil here unique, and what makes it different from, say, other wineries? Things can change from, a mile down the road can be very different. The climate, the soils can be different even within one vineyard, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we sit on about 3 different soil types that we have planted here. And they tend to be a little bit more dense. So we had to extensively go through and drain tile the vineyards prior to it. That pulls a lot of this moisture out. Standing moisture just gives vines wet feet. And so the richness of the soil actually contributes a lot to being able to grow, especially for us, it seems like the red varieties seem to really flourish around here. My dad looked at down the lake as being, they always called it the banana belt, and they're pushing more on the red grape varieties, and he called this area the pineapple belt. And I don't know if that's like, I remember looking it up to see if pineapples need more heat or not than bananas, but it was cool that he saw that. But what we found is, our red varieties can really intensify seemingly more than other producers can get out of their red wines. And so right out of the gate, we were known as a red producer. And, that's our favorite to drink, our family. And that's the thing that my brother Fred is, the most passionate about is the red grape varieties. We have, since we get the sunsets being on the east side of the lake, we get all this really, really intense heat from the sun, which definitely contributes to ripening the varieties a little bit more. So yeah, I think, we're happy with the spot that we have.
Do you recall how many cases you made the first vintage?
Oh, geez, no. A couple? A handful of hundreds of cases maybe from the first stuff.
Okay. And so what percentage of grapes are grown here or used in your wine?
Now it's over 95%. There's we fell into, and we still make a couple of moderately sweet wines that we purchase, either hybrid grape varieties or native grape varieties, to make a couple of sweeter ones, because we do a lot of stuff on site here. We do music here, that we don't want somebody to come here and not be able to find something that they like, and to be able to enjoy the property and everything. So but what's funny is that we've really gotten away from our sweeter programs of winemaking, and we're finding that the customers are looking for drier, more serious wines. So I could see in the next couple of years, like, it's 100% our grapes that we use. We sell some grape varieties to other producers. They're looking more for the reds because they've seen the red potential. But we're sort of maxed out on a couple of things too. Like I said about the Sauvignon Blanc, constantly people are asking us, if we have grapes available. We're maxed out on our production. We sell out like too fast on some things. So I think in the next 2 years we're going to be planting a lot more things. And we've explored other red grape varieties that aren't typical to here, that are more typical to warmer climates, to see the suitability, in the area. So planted a couple of hundred varieties of things like Tempranillo and Malbec and Petit Syrah and Carmenere and some other fun varieties to see, if they'd be suitable to here.
You mentioned drainage a little bit. Did you have to put in lots of drainage tiles here?
Yeah, the drainage tile ends up being, it's a network of, it's about 8 feet by 10 feet network under the ground. I believe it's about 8 feet in the ground. So it just draws all this moisture that would just be standing there out. And we have all these headways that you can see, like, where all this water is like just pouring out of the ground. You'd be so surprised to see, that so much is coming out of this ground and everything. So the vines tend to grow about that deep. And so we had to be careful not to plant vines that the root system was going to interfere with, any of this network of drain tiling. We had a local winery team that does an amazing job with laser planting vineyards.
Hosmer's.
That was Hosmer, yep,
Yeah.
Tunker. And they did an amazing job, and everything's just perfectly tight, and now it just looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's beautiful. The reason I mentioned the drainage is because the so-called father of American drainage tiles, John Johnston, lived right down the road
He's
from
a big
here.
deal. The Drain Tile Museum's right up the road.
Right, it's a very big deal. And some people have said they are still discovering his tiles underground.
Oh, it was a lot of clay tiles that they used back then and everything. Yeah, we
and they were
found a whole
two-part,
bunch.
like molded and, joined. And So it's a very big issue, drainage here. So I was just curious if you ever come across any of
we definitely have. Yeah.
his clay tiles. So can you describe some of the New York State incentives that you may have taken advantage of? I think that's more for beer, as far as hops and percentages of hops that are required.
I mean, with the Farm Winery Act, a lot of places were growers, when that came out, and it gave them the ability to open tasting rooms and actually function as retail outlets. We were later to the game than a lot of that stuff, but we're looking to explore some of the different benefits that we have from it. One of the benefits that we have from it is that we can operate a kitchen, and we have sort of a bistro that has grown quite a bit over the last few years, and we sort of concentrate a little bit and lean a little bit towards our Lebanese, foods and Middle Eastern foods that we grew up eating. And I like to go out and collect grape leaves from the vineyards, and roll our stuffed grape leaves, dolmas from there. And but our menu tends to lean towards like a Lebanese thing, but that was one of the things that the state sort of gave us the ability to do. And now we can serve beer, and we're allowed to serve spirits and things like that. So we're trying to take advantage of a lot of those things, and bring more and more people here.
And how many people are employed, seasonal versus year-round?
We have our main crew is about 8 people. Seasonally, when it comes to pruning vines, in the wintertime, we'll add a handful, up to 5 or 6 more people. But we have an amazing vineyard core between my brother Sean and Ricardo, that's been with us for years, to really be able to handle quite a bit, where it would take a handful more people to do.
So there must be many stressors, like market unknowns and the weather and climate. What is your worst experience to date?
Oh, come on. I mean, we're coming out of COVID.
Right, I knew, but I didn't want to lead you into that.
Yeah,
but
well, it's
assumed.
The thing about this business, and it's probably the same in a lot of people's businesses that they own, is that the unknown happens every single day. Every day a tractor goes down, and every day a dog attacks a customer, or something crazy happens that is completely out of the ordinary, that you have to kind of roll with. And when things come around, it's just about being flexible, and it's about being able to handle situations as they come up. And it takes a cool head, and it takes a quick analysis of kind of the environment, and to be able to bounce from it. COVID was a huge game changer for everybody. Every single industry had to reinvent the wheel. And, there was a lot of resources from the state and from organizations that we belong to, and a lot of camaraderie and people sharing ideas and things. We were pretty aggressive in a lot of our decisions that we made when COVID happened. It took us a second to kind of understand what the environment was going to be. And even now it's still a guessing game. But I feel like we were ahead of the game in a lot of ways, to really be able to accommodate, what we were handed at the time. And, everybody is ready right now to get out and enjoy it again.
Yeah, some winery owners have said that they had to make changes, mandated changes, and now they aren't sure if they'd go back to the way things were with like buses and limos and large. That it's more intimate tastings. They may just keep that format.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Like over the years we've kind of scaled back the like the size of the groups that we were entertaining here. We feel like a more intimate group is just better for everybody, on our side, on their side. And so, yes, like we're, our capacities have lowered for group sizes. I love that, when the breweries came into the game, they had this system where you would get a flight of beer and you go sit down and enjoy the place. And for us, it was, the industry had set up a format, that you come into a tasting room and that you stand at the tasting table and you taste through some wines and you ask the questions and stuff. And so there's some kind of happy medium between the two. There's this intimacy in speaking with people and knowing where people are from and being able to answer questions that people have.
Right.
But also it takes away from this gorgeous property to be able to just sit back. So I think that once, things are really open and things are sort of back to normal, we'll see a hybrid kind of the two styles. We have a huge tasting bar that anybody can come up and taste, and also be able to take their tasting flights and sit down, grab some food, and do that kind of thing.
Right. So what could you say? I'm sure there are many. Is your greatest contribution and achievement that you think of here at the Vineyard?
Our greatest accomplishment, I think, is that like we finally feel like we're a part of like the industry, that we finally feel like not just our guests kind of knowing that we're passionate about making great wine, but our industry colleagues see that some of the things that we do and sort of like just respect the fact that we're doing things a certain way, and maybe even follow suit and see that we're kind of adding to a kind of contributing to strengthening the region. But I also think that the fact that we're very adamant about making really like elegant dry wines and sort of bucking the trend of making all these sweet wines that a lot of companies will say that that it pays the bills so that they can make the wines that they want to. No, like it diminishes the region, or diminishes sort of the appeal from serious wine groups and the international wine community, and so we're little guys in a big pond, and I don't think that our impact's huge yet, and I think that we're just happy helping to grow the region into a respectable, elegant, wine region.
And kind of breaking the barrier of just being a region for Riesling. Mm-hmm. For the longest time it was just considered Riesling. So the reds, that's great. What would you tell anybody interested in a career in the industry or starting a winery? What's advice? I
don't think there's anything like it. Like, if your passion is to work outside, being in vineyards is spiritual. To have in the wintertime, to have the geese flying by, looking for their new home, and being able to look at this vine and to see, what this vine needs for the next year, and to work individually with each one. You have this connection. It's really intense and it's really spiritual. Winemaking, is its own thing. It's chemistry. It's being a taste master, and there's just so much to so much knowledge out there, and there's like just so much abstraction that you could play with at the same time. And it's an industry that's not stuffy. It's an industry that's feels free. Like it's hard to explain. Like, a lot of times I'll talk to people, and somebody will say, "Wow, I'm going to retire and start a winery." That's not the kind of person that needs to start a winery, because on the other side of everything, there's so much work that goes into it. There's so much blood that you lose. There's so much sweat that comes out of you from all the stuff that you go through. And it takes a certain kind of person. And, if it's the kind of person that can give everything that they have, then there's glory in it.
Oh, beautifully put. Is there anything else you'd like to add? No?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much for your time. And it's a beautiful setting. And again, this is Brendan Zugibe from Zugibe Vineyards, and I am Monica Wilkinson-Kelly of the Edith B. Ford Memorial Library. Today is May 13, 2021, and I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.